I walked away from an emotional affair, realizing I had fallen for a coworker even though she had a boyfriend. I can't accept cheating, I told her, but she insisted I didn't do anything wrong. Now I'm seeing infidelity everywhere and questioning my trust in women. Was I just jaded or was it all a manipulation? TLDR, I noticed that my friendship with a coworker was turning into an emotional affair, so I confronted her about it. She denied it, and I decided to walk away even though I had fallen in love with her. Then I started seeing cheating everywhere, feeling gaslit, and I wondered if I was perceiving things correctly or just becoming bitter. Important lessons were learned. I'm a 27-year-old male and I met a 27-year-old female at work. We connected well, and I was aware she had a boyfriend who was 35 years old and pursuing a career as a doctor. I have many friends who are females since I predominantly work with them, so I did not think much of becoming friends with her. During the last 2 to 3 years, I had started focusing on self-improvement and was beginning to attract more attention from women. I obtained her phone number and met her boyfriend to discuss joining the military. Afterward, she began texting me almost daily to chat or hang out. I was in a pretty dark place at that time because I had recently lost my sister to suicide, and this girl was supportive in ways that some of my other friends were not. She even cooked for me twice, having noticed that I was snacking at work due to not preparing my meals in advance. She exhibited many red flags. Her father was a serial cheater who was absent, she was financially dependent on her boyfriends, she had cheated in the past, and she had a history of bad relationships and a promiscuous past, embodying the classic narrative of a broken woman. We spent a lot of time together, one-on-one, and I felt a strong connection with many shared interests. However, I am ashamed to admit that many of our interactions were quite flirtatious. After about 3 months, I went over to her and her boyfriend's home to work on a furniture project, and I was unaware until I arrived that her boyfriend was out of state at a doctor's convention. We ordered food and were watching television when things escalated. It was cold, so we grabbed blankets, and her legs ended up resting on mine, creating a moment where I sensed she wanted me to make a move. I paused and recognized that we were crossing a significant boundary. I attempted to lighten the mood and soon left, realizing how precarious our situation had become. While I acknowledge I contributed by flirting, I believed that flirting with friends was usually harmless, at least that was my perspective at the time. The following day at work, I sought advice from another female friend, admitting I had messed up and asking her to join me and the coworker to gauge her opinion. I thought that if I avoided one-on-one hangouts, we could behave more appropriately. Unfortunately, this did not turn out to be the case. Although we began spending time in groups, my other female friends noticed the dynamic. She even started confiding in me about issues in her relationship, and I sidestepped her questions while inquiring about her boyfriend, asking why he never joined us or discussing the difficulties he faced. She recognized that I was distancing myself. I knew I needed to move on, but I realized too late that I had fallen in love for the first time. One day, a friend informed me that this girl expressed resentment about how her male friends fell in love with her and claimed she was not flirtatious at all. When I heard this, I was upset, not primarily because she did not want me, but because she lacked awareness or accountability, trying to portray herself as a victim. I started ignoring her, but she quickly picked up on it. I confronted her about our friendship being inappropriate, and she denied there was an emotional affair. She insisted her boyfriend knew about that night on the couch, stating he merely advised her to be cautious but did not consider it a significant issue. I expressed that I had fallen in love and compelled her to acknowledge what she was deriving from me that she lacked in her relationship. She admitted it was intimacy. She wanted to remain friends, and I became upset, asserting that continuing our friendship would be disrespectful to both me and her boyfriend. I ignored her for months afterward, feeling used and incredulous that she was evading accountability. However, before I went for basic combat training, I had one final conversation with her. I told her that although I still loved her, I could never condone cheating or emotional manipulation. I hoped we could both take responsibility for the emotional affair we had fostered. I wanted to have an honest discussion about what led to crossing boundaries and how my departure was the right choice. She continued to assert that she had done nothing wrong, claiming she had no feelings for me and that the couch incident was innocuous or boundary respecting, insisting that her boyfriend was aware and unconcerned. I maintained my stance, stating it was a serious issue, that all the flirting was inappropriate, and I did not genuinely believe her boyfriend knew. I conveyed that even if he did know, that realization might indicate even worse boundaries or ignorance between them. She offered to put me in touch with him, but I could not do that, not out of guilt, but because I sensed she was financially reliant on him and did not want her to get hurt. I informed her that it did not matter if she was lying or being truthful. Either scenario pointed toward her boyfriend not loving her enough to care or her lack of love for him if she was engaging in a blatant emotional affair and refusing to acknowledge it. I asked if she genuinely believed she was making the right choice by being with him, and she affirmed that she was happy. I told her I believed she was sacrificing her own well-being for financial security and that she was on the wrong path. Due to her inability to take responsibility, I could never accept her, and I blocked her on all platforms, but this experience deeply affected me, to be honest. I understand that some may say I brought this upon myself, and they would not be wrong. However, I can genuinely say it resulted from carelessness on my part. Whether you choose to believe me or not, that same year I faced many other instances of infidelity and boundary violations, and I believe I handled them appropriately. A girl I asked out told me she had a boyfriend but wanted to give me her Instagram, despite having flirted heavily with me, such as placing her hand on my leg. I took my phone back and said no, recognizing that it did not feel right and that her boyfriend was a fortunate man. A female friend of mine whose boyfriend did not attend a dinner told me, "You will be my boyfriend's name for the evening." I directly told her, "Do not say that, it is inappropriate." I was at basic combat training, in a battle buddy situation with a girl, only to discover she had a fiancé. I informed her that I knew she was unfaithful, that it was unacceptable, and said goodbye. As a side note, the military has an overwhelming amount of infidelity. The lesson I have learned is that if you find yourself attracted to someone broken, it is likely that you are also broken, and you will end up hurting each other unless you acknowledge your need for healing first. The primary girl I experienced this ordeal with has become engaged to her boyfriend, and as someone who did fall in love with her, it struck hard to realize she is indeed abandoning herself by marrying for financial stability. She would not have cheated or engaged in an emotional affair if she truly loved him. If he loved her, he would have noticed or cared enough to devote time to her. I know I should be angry with her for her actions, but I cannot help but still care about her, even though I will never love her again or allow her back into my life. Ultimately, I want to seek others' opinions and share my main experience. Do you believe she was right or wrong? Do you think she is genuinely happy with him, or is she headed toward an unhappy life? Do you think she truly had no feelings for me, or was she lying in hopes that by denying her feelings, she could place the blame on me for developing feelings? I have become quite pessimistic about women cheating these days. I have been achieving success in all aspects of life, which has improved my dating experiences. However, I have noticed that contemporary dating is increasingly toxic and unsettling. I have been attending therapy to address my flaws, and I am learning how to cultivate and select healthier relationships. Hopefully, I will find the right one. The final lesson I learned is that men need to improve, myself included, as we are the leaders responsible for being better men, husbands, and fathers to ensure we shape society and our children positively, so we do not continue creating these broken, unhealthy individuals. I reject the influence of feminism, which distorts the minds of young women, and I oppose the red pill ideology that infects young men. I also study and work in psychology, and I can assure you that healthy relationships are not formed from either of these extreme ideologies. If you're looking for guidance on how to build healthy relationships, I recommend seeking advice from Sadia Khan. Much of what she promotes is psychologically and statistically accurate regarding fostering healthy connections. Story 2. I discovered my sister and I were dating the same charming guy on Thanksgiving. "You too?" We gasped in horror, comparing photos and texts, finding his elaborate lies. We took our power back, confronting him together and bonding like never before. How did we let this happen? We were both dating the same person, and we had absolutely no idea. Let me provide some background. I am the younger sister by 3 years. We have always been close, but we reside in different parts of the city and maintain separate friend groups. I am more of the quiet, bookish type who would prefer to be at home with a good novel, while she is the social butterfly who knows every bartender downtown by name. I met him at a coffee shop near my apartment. It was a classic meet cute. He accidentally knocked over my latte while reaching for a napkin, insisted on purchasing a replacement, and we ended up talking for 2 hours. He was charming, attentive, and appeared genuinely interested in my ramblings about my job in library science. When he asked for my phone number, it felt like the beginning of something promising. What I did not know was that 3 weeks earlier, he had met my sister at a friend's birthday party. He used the same charming smile, the same attentive listening, and the same genuine interest in her event planning career. The warning signs were there, I just failed to see them. He was always busy on certain evenings of the week, never invited me to his home, and kept our relationship off social media because he valued privacy. When I reflect back, I want to shake my past self. "I've been seeing someone new," I told my sister during our monthly phone catch-up. "Me too," she replied. "He's so different from my usual type." "Mine too," I laughed. "He actually listens when I talk." We did not share further details. Perhaps if we had described him or mentioned a name, which I will call Jay for this story, we might have figured it out sooner. However, we had always had a somewhat competitive dynamic growing up, and perhaps subconsciously we did not want to jeopardize our new relationships by comparing notes. The weeks passed and things with Jay were going very well. He remembered small details about the stories I told. He brought me soup when I fell ill. He sent sweet good morning texts that made me smile like an idiot during my commute. Sometimes he had to cancel plans at the last minute due to work emergencies, family obligations, or a friend in crisis. I believed him every time. Why would I not? Trust is the foundation of relationships, right? Then came Thanksgiving. My sister and I both arrived at our parents' house early to help with cooking. "So is your mysterious new guy coming to dinner?" I teased as we peeled potatoes. She shook her head. "He is having Thanksgiving with his family in Connecticut." "Mine too," I said, surprised. "Well, he said upstate New York, but still." We laughed at the coincidence and moved on to chopping onions. There were no alarm bells, not even a hint of suspicion. It was not until after dinner, when the food coma was setting in and we were all sprawled across the living room furniture, that my sister pulled out her phone. "Mom, you have to see how cute he is," she said, scrolling through her photos. "I think this might actually be serious." She held out her phone, and I glanced over casually from my spot on the couch. And there he was, his arm around my sister at some rooftop bar, displaying that same smile he had given me just 2 days earlier when he kissed me goodbye and said he wished he did not have to leave town for the holiday. The room did not actually go silent. My father was still talking about some neighbor's leaf blower and the television was playing the football game. But in my head, everything came to a halt. That is, I could not get the words out. My sister looked at me confused, then concerned. "What is wrong? You look like you have seen a ghost." I reached for my own phone with trembling hands, opened my photos and handed it to her. Her face went through the same transformation mine must have: confusion, disbelief, then dawning horror. "Is this some kind of joke?" she whispered. Our parents, now aware something was happening, watched in confusion as we compared photos, dates, and text messages. The identical good morning texts, the same excuses for canceled plans, and even the same restaurant where he had taken both of us, though he had been clever enough to request different tables. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The nights he could not see me were when he was with her. The weekends he was out of town were sometimes true, but at other times he was simply across the city. He had constructed elaborate lies, keeping just enough truth to make them believable. What followed was probably the most honest conversation my sister and I had ever had. Sitting on our childhood bedroom floor, still in our Thanksgiving dinner clothes, we laid everything out. When we had met him, what he had told each of us about his life, the promises, the future plans, all of it. "I cannot believe I fell for this," my sister said, wiping away angry tears. "I am supposed to be the street-smart one." "And I am supposed to be the observant one," I replied. What a team we make. That is when something shifted. Looking at each other across a sea of tissues, something bubbled up, not quite laughter, but close. "Did he tell you about his supposed peanut allergy?" I asked. She snorted, "Yes, but then I saw him eat pad thai with peanuts. He told me it was a mild sensitivity that comes and goes." The same exact words. She collapsed backward onto the carpet. And suddenly we were both laughing, that kind of unhinged, slightly hysterical laughter that comes when the alternative is falling apart. We stayed up until 3 a.m., comparing notes and planning our response. Because if there is one thing stronger than feeling like a fool, it is the bond between sisters who have been played by the same man. We decided on a coordinated approach. No angry confrontation that would only provide him the drama and attention he probably craved. Instead, we would meet him together, calmly explain that we knew everything, then walk away and never look back. 2 days later, I texted him to meet at a cafe, the same one where we had first met. My sister was already there when he walked in, his face lighting up when he saw me near the door. "Hey, I missed," he started, then froze when he spotted my sister sitting at a table by the window. I will never forget his expression, like a computer running too many programs at once and crashing. He actually took a step backward. "We thought it might be nice for all of us to have coffee together," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. What followed was both awful and strangely empowering. He attempted denial first, then minimizing, "We never said we were exclusive," then blame shifting, "You two never mentioned having a sister," and finally, pathetic apologizing. My sister and I did not yell. We did not cry. We simply laid out what we knew, explained that we would both be blocking him on everything, and suggested he seek professional help for whatever issues made him think this behavior was acceptable. Then we left him sitting there and walked out together. Outside, my sister took my hand. "Are you okay?" "Not really," I admitted, "but I will be. How about you?" "Same," she squeezed my fingers. "I cannot believe we dated the same guy." I cannot believe we are going to have to tell this story at every family gathering for the rest of our lives. She laughed. Mom is never going to let us live it down. And she has not. It has been 2 years, and every time one of us mentions a new date, she says, "Have you checked with your sister?" We have both dated other people since then, better people. I am currently seeing someone whom I am quite serious about. And yes, my sister has met him multiple times by my choice right from the beginning. That Thanksgiving changed the dynamic between us. We talk more now about everything. The competition that always simmered beneath our relationship has mostly dissolved. It turns out that learning you have been dating the same person as your sister is a pretty effective way to reset your priorities. Sometimes I still feel angry thinking about him and all his lies, but mostly I am grateful, not for what he did that was unquestionably awful, but for what came after. My sister and I rediscovered each other as adults. We built something stronger. Story 3. Caught my ex 40M texting a former student apologizing for a drunken pass. He said, "Sometimes people are attracted to each other." After months of emotional neglect and gaslighting over his professional relationship, I finally broke free. How did I let it go on for so long? TLDR, my former partner, 40 years old male, engaged in an emotional affair with a previous student. It is unclear when the story truly begins. My former partner, 40 years old male, taught high school science. I, 28 years old female, met him years ago during a summer job. I was young and we connected almost immediately. However, if my frontal lobe had been fully developed, I would have recognized the signs of the future all around me. For example, when we met, he was in a relationship which he seemed very indifferent about. We were far away from his girlfriend, and while I was aware of his relationship, his demeanor, conversations, and continued pursuit made me feel comfortable with the situation. He ended his relationship with his girlfriend a few months later, and we began dating. Throughout the relationship over the following years, I occasionally felt loved, but for the most part, I was pursuing this confused, ambivalent grown man who liked me enough to share his life with me but not enough to commit to a future together. I loved him and desperately wanted him to perceive me as a safe haven for love as well, as if that were the issue. Fast forward a few more years, we were still in the same place, living together and moving forward without any concrete plans. I genuinely contemplated leaving him solely for that reason, but I stayed, believing the next step would soon come. That was when I began to notice things becoming unusual. It is essential to mention that my former partner was a well-loved high school teacher. I admired his passion for his work and dedication to his students. The attachments his students had to him struck me as somewhat unsettling, but I did not think much of them initially. Suddenly, however, he stopped coming to bed with me, would stay up drinking himself into a stupor, and receive strange phone calls at night claiming, "XXX needs me." This behavior persisted for a few weeks, but one day my intuitive sense kicked in. He had gone out for drinks while I remained home, and upon his return he fell asleep on the couch while I finished watching a show. His phone buzzed incessantly, and although we often checked each other's phones, I can still remember the anxiety I felt when I picked up his phone to see what was happening. To my surprise, it was one of his cherished former students apologizing for an inappropriate drunken advance she had made toward him. That was not even what bothered me. It was his response, which was along the lines of, "It's okay, sometimes people are attracted to each other." That marked the beginning of a mind-bending experience of being gaslighted by a man 12 years older than me who insisted he was not really cheating, but rather helping out a troubled youth. In short, my former partner was infatuated with this girl when she was his student. Although there was nothing overtly inappropriate, he kept that door open for years due to his peculiar obsession. What is astonishing is that they never even dated because he was not honest with her about the entire game he had going on to feed his own ego. She was unaware he was in a relationship, and she and I coincidentally told him that this needed to end on the same night. That was the first time I saw sadness in his eyes since the affair was revealed. I was only a few years older than she was, so when I came to terms with what had happened, I fell into a deep depression, questioning myself, this man whom I had not yet broken up with, our future and reality itself. I was excessively reactive and made many questionable decisions during this time, but I believe it was because my mind was trying to reconcile an unfathomable betrayal. To summarize, he never changed, and I ultimately left him. He spent a great deal of time pretending that his infidelity was merely a professional relationship gone awry, while also hiding in his own shameful depression for years. This relationship taught me the truth of the saying, "How you get them is how you lose them." I was not the exception. I dated a pathetic serial cheater and should have recognized the warning signs early on. There are numerous painful details and memories from the 4 years we spent together before the cheating came to light and the 1 year after as we tried to reconcile, but this captures the essence. To all the young women out there drawn in by older men, you are not as mature as you think and he is a predator. It can be challenging to discern, but the power imbalance becomes clear when he dismisses your experiences, desires, and needs as mere symptoms of your youth. Why would you date someone in their early 20s and then be upset that they act their age? On a positive note, I am doing much better now. I have regained my confidence and sense of self. It has been a wild journey, and while there are scars, much of it has shaped who I am today. Sincerely,